Violence and chaos, arrest and execution, police brutality, destruction of churches. This is what is happening in Egypt today. This is a result and example of the violation of freedom of expression. Much injustice happened under Morsi's 12-month rule, showing chaos and death towards those who do not have the same beliefs as him and the Muslim Brotherhood. Freedom of speech has been highly violated when 15 journalists and politicians were arrested, charged for insulting the judiciary, and 9 criminal complaints were filed for insulting the president through public criticism. In Port Said, 46 people were killed at prison protest. 22 anti-Morsi protesters were shot and killed by police force throughout Cairo, Mansoura, and Mahala. 800 protesters were arrested, where hundreds were illegally held, including 264 children, where people were victims of torture and sexual abuse, and at least 8 people died in police custody in result of torture. Let's look back to the last 50 years. 2 leaders who have made major changes and impacts to Egypt include Nasser in 1950 and Mubarak in 1981. Gamal Abdel Nasser made major changes in the way government in Egypt worked. In change, Nasser ended the dual court system in Egypt when closing the religious courts. This gave the government absolute control of judiciary and diminishing role of religious establishment. The freedom to express oneself thoughts has been completely prohibited. This does not support democracy or the right of the people. He also worked hard to ban all political parties in hopes to eliminate competition, along with banning Muslim Brotherhood and communists. Nasser could have done more and sacrificed more for his country, for he had the power and opportunity to democratize and give the people of Egypt proper rights. However, he fell short, focusing more on himself and possible political power. In 1981, a new regime falls under President Hosni Mubarak. An author describes him as a ruthless dictator with corrupt security, failing to achieve economic and social reforms. During protests against Mubarak, the author describes his experience on the streets. So, let's look back to the modern-day responses to human rights in Egypt. A year after Morsi was in office, millions of people stood in the streets for 3 days until their military chief Abdel Fattah Sisi overthrew Morsi. For his violent actions towards the civilians and allowing police brutality, Morsi, along with 10 of his senior aides, were detained and then transferred to court. He was then ordered into detention in normal prison. Because of Morsi's removal from power, elections took place in Egypt. In 2014 between Abdel Fattah Sisi and Hamdine Sabi, who had both promised that if elected would keep the Muslim Brotherhood out of Egyptian politics. In the end of the election, Sisi won Egyptian presidential elections with 96% of the people's votes. While he said very optimistic things towards freedom of expression for the people, they do not seem to be following through. In 2014, researcher with the Egyptian Initiative for Personal Rights, Sarah Salam, was a part of 23 people for breaking anti-protest law. He was fined 10,000 EGP, also known as US $14,000. Sarah Leah Whitson, Middle East and North Africa director, talks about how the human rights are still being suppressed today and being violated, and how the pattern of presidents in Egypt suppressing the people's opinion is still going on, even with this new president Sisi. So, let's look back at the facts. Nasser chose to suppress political campaigns rather than focusing on giving the people rights. Mubarak was simply described as a ruthless dictator only thinking for himself, and Morsi had numerous flaws, killing and arresting people in hopes to silence them. Now Sisi is showing signs of arrest towards those through protest. So, with this in mind, we must look at possible solutions to protect Egyptians' rights. What Egypt needs is a good, powerful president. All these presidents are showing terrible signs of leadership and are not looking out for the people, thinking politically for themselves. What Egypt needs is a leader who will think about caring for the rights of the people. Someone who will allow people to express themselves freely. Another is to find a freedom of expression representative who will represent the people and look out for them. There are corporations today looking out for these people and trying to speak out for them, including Egyptian Initiative for Personal Rights and Amnesty International, who are making freedom of expression a priority. In the end, freedom of expression is very important and something that the people of Egypt lack but need. These are all essential aspects that people are entitled to have and pursue. Now, the solutions that I have offered are extremely long-term and don't seem like something that we as teenagers can act upon. but that doesn't stop us from taking actions. These two corporations are fighting for these people's rights, and by donating, we can help the problem at hand. Freedom of expression is important and necessary. By understanding this problem, we can take a step closer to peace.